Hello, I'm Forest Focus as we're joined by one of the names most synonymous with Nottingham Forest in the last 25 years, a man who played 280 times for the club, coached in the academy, was first team coach when we got promoted, and now oversees the plan to help academy talent break into the first team of a Premier League club. Andy Reid, it's great to have you with us this evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
No, great to have you with us. Great to have you with us. People who've watched this podcast enough know that you are my favourite Forest player. I don't know if it's an age thing that we were born 2 days apart, as I was saying to you. So I'm probably partially annoyed that you got all the God-given talent, but you're the player I most enjoyed watching. So great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. That's a good compliment. It's interesting that because you talk about the age thing. So I get like kids kind of come up to me now who are like, say, 8, 9, 10, 11. And they come up and they like want to get a picture or an autograph or something like that. So I have a little look around to see where their dads are, because their dads have quite obviously said he used to play for Forest, go over there and get a picture with him, kind of thing, So that's the kind of age and stage that I'm at the moment.
No, it's good. It's mostly a good age. We were both saying before we started recording, we've been out in the back gardens with our kids, and I feel like I'm glistening at the slightest bit of heat, and must be pretty out of shape. But I'm looking forward to talking to you. Lots to get through. I thought we'd probably go back and chronologically look at a few things. Probably starting with how you ended up at Forest. Like I said in the intro, it's been a long association with the club. Were you like 14 or something when they first came into your life?
Yeah, I was 14. Came over on a trial. We'd a scout over in Ireland, brilliant scout actually, Desi McGowan, and he was a great guy, and he sent me and Keith Foy over on a couple of trials, and we come over and we just got a feel for the place. Really, we just got a nice feel, and I'd been on trial for a couple of different clubs, and some quite big clubs actually, and I just felt when I was at them that you were just like a little bit of another number, There was like busloads of kids coming in to kind of go on trial, and whereas when we came to Forest, we were training with the under 18s, and there was only 2 or 3 of us there on trial, and it just felt like there was a bit more of a personal connection, and it was the type of place that I wanted to kind of come. So yeah, so that happened when I was 14. And then the club offered us both a contract, and I suppose that's where it really started from.
Who was? Am I right in saying it was Paul Hart and Nick Marshall who you were working with
Well,
then?
well, funnily enough, at the start, when I first came over on trial, and when I signed, there was a man called John Perkins, who had been at the club for quite a while, and he was the under 18s coach. And then in the period that I signed for the club, which was probably in like the March, I think it might have been March '97, I think it was, till the period that we got in for pre-season, which was the 1st of July. Paul Hart had come in, and he'd taken over as academy manager. So I always remember the first day kind of walking in, and it was the first time I'd met Paul properly. I remember looking at him, and he's a big man, Paul. If you've ever kind of been in his company, big centre back looking type, and he looked pretty scary. So I was thinking to myself, this is going to be tough, and sure it was. Sure enough, it was tough. And Paul was very, very tough, but on us in a really, really good way. So that was a real good introduction. And then, as I started to kind of get to know Paul more and more, quickly started to realize the knowledge that he had, and the ability as a coach to get information across to you in a really simple, effective way, so you understood exactly what he wanted from you. And then we were also fortunate enough that we had some other really good people around us then. Steve Wigley was in as a coach for a couple of years with us, which was great. He was brilliant. Charlie McParlin, John Pemberton, Andy Beasley, people like that. We'd kind of they were in and around it, and they were really, really good people to lean on. Chris Fairclough as well, and Nick Marshall that you mentioned. I think Nick was kind of only kind of getting going in his kind of coaching stroke, kind of administration, football, kind of development role, and he's obviously gone on to do brilliant for himself as well.
And I know Nick quite well. He sends his best to you, and Paul's been on here many a time, and he is an imposing figure, as you say, for anyone who hasn't met him in person. You're a bit of a case study on this podcast, actually, whenever they're on, especially Nick, in terms of that referencing you as a free spirit who they never thought would be a coach. So I wanted to ask at what point you thought you might get it. Firstly, is that a fair characterization, I should say? And at what point did you think about coaching?
I didn't really think about it. I think it's probably a fair characterization from maybe my early days in football, from when I was quite young. But in some ways, I think it's probably unfair, because anybody who knows me, and Nick and Paul will know this as well, I always took my football very, very seriously. And I was always really, really kind of passionate about it, and probably struggled in the early part of my career to kind of channel that passion and that, I suppose, that kind of drive in the right way. And it didn't always go how I kind of wanted to, which led to some disagreements with me and Paul. And it's funny, because me and Paul say, when we go for a cup of tea now, which I love doing, and I love catching up with him, we kind of have a laugh about them times, But I think I can possibly understand where Nick is coming from, in maybe some of his early thoughts. But I always took my football very seriously, and as I started to move on in football and kind of understand what I was doing on the pitch, because in the early part of your career, I think with the type of footballer that I was quite natural. I just went out and played without probably thinking about it too much. But I think as you get older, you start to understand, why you're taking up a certain position, or when somebody makes room, what the timing is like, about how it fits into kind of a team philosophy. And as that started to kind of grow on me, and I started to understand that, I felt like a move towards coaching would be something that I wanted to do.
Yeah, I don't want to do them a disservice. They did speak very highly of you as well
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I do understand to a certain degree, but I think Nick will probably understand as well, and Paul, to probably a lesser extent, but Nick kind of walked with me when I was really young, and he probably wouldn't have kind of seen how I developed as a person and a player as well, in that. But it's always an interesting one. I think it's an interesting question, because I don't think anybody knows. You can say, "Oh yeah, he'd be a coach," but I've known players there, like similar to maybe what's been said. I say, I don't think he'll ever be a coach. And then there's been other players that I thought he'd be a brilliant coach, and he'll definitely go into it, and it just hasn't been for them, So I think it's difficult to say, because coaching's not just about the knowledge of the game. It's about it's about loads of different things that go into it. Probably a really good piece of advice that Gary Brazil gave me as I was coming towards the end of me kind of playing career. I spoke to him about going into coaching, and he said to me, and it stuck with me for some reason. He says, really, when you do go into coaching from playing, he says you have to become humble really, really quickly. And he didn't kind of elaborate on that too much. That was kind of all he said, but it stuck with me. And I remember kind of thinking to myself then, as I started to get into the coaching, I was thinking, I understand what this means now. When you're a player, you've got so many staff surrounding you, especially when you play to a good level, which I was fortunate enough to do. You've got a lot of staff around you. You've got a lot of people to help you. You do very little except kind of play football. And when you're a coach, then you turn into one of them people that is there to help the players. So it becomes not nothing about you, because you still have all your personal goals and you want to try and achieve. But what you're trying to do is help other people. So instead of kind of everything being done for you, you are now somebody who's doing a lot for other people and is trying to help other people. So you have to kind of, that humility has to come to the fore pretty kind of quickly.
That kind of leads into your job today at Forest. I wanted to pick your brains about. Tell us what it is, first of all, and then I'll want to try and explore the challenges that you face and how it might relate to your previous experiences. But what is it you're doing at Forest these days?
So my role is transition coach, and I think what I'm trying to do is to kind of make it as smooth as possible for them players when they move between the academy and the first team, which is kind of a big jump, and it's, especially now with the level that the club is at, it's such a such a big jump from academy football to go straight in at the top level in the Premier League. So the journey is different for everybody, and we understand the challenges. We understand the challenges that these players face, and they face a lot of challenges, a lot of different challenges to maybe what people have faced kind of in years gone by in terms of social media. And there's a lot of pressure and the mental health, and there's a lot of different pressures that young people face now, and we have to try and kind of understand them, and we want to try and give them the best opportunity to make it into our first team. So my job is to kind of, there's coaching involved in it, there's mentoring involved in it, there's a lot of planning involved in it, a lot of communication kind of between the first team staff and between the academy staff, a lot of communication with the players. So all them things I'm kind of knitting together at the moment. And when I came into the job, nobody had done the job at the club before, and there wasn't this role, and we kind of created this role, and I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. I wasn't sure whether it was just going to be, just I wasn't really sure what it was going to be like. But some people at the club, and I suppose I seen a real kind of value in it as well, and other people at the club did too. So I've kind of, what I've been trying to do is build a framework, because I love the job. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. It probably won't be something that I'm going to be doing for 10, 12, 13 years. So at some point I will probably move on to try something else and to do something else. And what I wanted to do when I do leave the job is that I've built a framework so the next person can come in and they've got something to kind of go from. So in some respects, when you walk into a job and there's no framework, or there's nothing there already, you can look at it two ways. It can be quite daunting, that you have to kind of do it and pull it together, or you can look at it in the other way and say, look, I've got free reign here to be able to build and be able to implement some of my ideas and bring some of my creativity to the role. And that's what I've done.
I suppose it's trying to get young players through from the academy into the first team now is ever harder. I mean, people have been on here. I think Chris McGrain's been on here, and Nick Marshall, going back to him, talking about opportunity is everything. And it's so hard to get players this opportunity to play in our first team, isn't it? When, we're in the Premier League, we can't say, oh, we're battling against relegation, we can't throw them in. Now we're saying, oh, we're in Europe, we're trying to, how are we going to throw them in? I guess maybe the Conference League helps, but how big of a factor is that challenge that, we are just a big club now?
Well, we've always been a big club. We're just probably at the levels that we all felt, or anybody who knows the club well, we're at them levels that we felt we could kind of be at. But in terms of getting players into the first team, it is becoming very difficult, because the first team need a player. They need a player immediately, and with the means and the resources and the support that the owner has given, which has obviously been incredible, a lot of the time we can go out and buy a player and pay really good money for him. Now that poses challenges now to the academy, so we have to find ways where we can prepare our players ready for the Premier League, but we have to buy them time. So what does that look like? Does that mean, probably give you maybe a couple of different examples? Okay, so we use Ryan Yates as an example. Okay, we gave Ryan Yates time as a football club by sending him out on loan and getting experience at different levels. He's really rose to every single challenge that's been put in front of him. He's kind of smashed all the barriers down as he's gone along, jumped up the levels, and then had a couple of, maybe 3 years in the Championship from when he really broke into the Forest first team, to then get himself ready to then go into the Premier League. Gets up to the Premier League, has a bit of a bedding in period, the same as everybody else, and then rises to that level for him now to become what he is as an established Premier League player. So that's one type of journey where somebody's been given the time. Now, Yatesy, his journey is probably unique because he's jumped on the ship, so to speak, with Forest and got promoted with Forest. So that bought him the time. Another journey you might look at, say, Zach Abbott's journey, who, we've looked at Zach and the first team manager has taken a real liking to a lot of the stuff that Zach has done. And Zach's worked really closely over the years with Warren Joyce and the other coaches in the academy. And then he's got an opportunity to train with the first team when Steve Cooper was manager. And his journey has been felt up until this point that it was best for him to stay in the football club, to train every day with the first team, to get experience being in that group every day, to change in the first team changing room. And as of this moment, it's been decided that it hasn't been the right thing for him to go out on loan. Now, he could go out on loan at some point in the future. That will be kind of looked at and decided as we move forward. But for the moment, his journey was decided that it's best to stay in and do it. So I think the point I'm trying to kind of get at there is that everybody's journey is different, and we have to find a way of making sure that the journey is the right one for that individual player, with the aim of getting them ready to then go into the first team and stake a claim to become a regular first team player at Nottingham Forest, because that's our number one aim in the academy, is to produce players that can play in Nottingham Forest first team.
I wanted to ask you a bit about Zach. He seems like a really very grounded, very clever young man. It's interesting. I see he's featured in the club media quite a lot, which is interesting for a 19-year-old. He must be a switched on, intelligent guy. I heard he trains relentlessly as well, and he's got a great attitude. Can you tell us a bit about him, and also how much do you think he will have learned from firstly playing in the FA Cup semi-final and for playing in the Euros? I think he captained England in the Euros. How beneficial will those experiences be for him?
Yeah, these are all brilliant experiences that are kind of invaluable, really. You look back on them and I suppose you look back on them in a few years' time, and Zach will look back on his and he will think, he learned so much playing against these players and playing with these players. An incredible life experience, lining up for Forest, the team that he's been with, club that he's been with for years, in a semi-final against one of the best teams in the world. So it's incredible experience. His international recognition is something that's been that we're really pleased for him about. He's gone in there and he's earned himself a place, and then he's earned himself the captaincy, and he's been a real standout performer for that England national team on the 19 level. So that's something that himself and his family can be really proud of. I mean, I know how proud you should be and how proud your family are when you play international football. It's a real achievement. So all these things are more kind of feathers in his cap, I suppose. But Zach is a very forward-thinking kind of player, and he won't rest on his laurels. You've mentioned his work rate. He's relentless. He wants to improve. He wants to get better. He's constantly looking for support, looking for ways that he can improve and looking for ways that he can get better. So, he'll take them experience, but he'll be marching forward as well, and he'll be looking to improve and have an even better season this season.
Do you see another bracket of talent that maybe fans aren't as familiar with, who could make that step up as well? I mean, I've written in my notes here, Dale Taylor's had a great season on loan at Wigan. Joe Gardner seems like a big prospect, and Detlef for Supper Song seems like he's had some really bad luck actually last season. Are there other names bubbling that you're really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of them, names are that you've mentioned are all people that we see as high potential, and we fully understand that that it's difficult to get every single player into our first team, and we've got responsibility. The number one aim is to try and get players into our first team, as I've just mentioned, but also if it gets to a point where these players maybe are just going to fall a little bit short, there's no shame in that. But what we want to do is give them the best opportunity they can to have a career in football, because as developers of young players and as kind of mentors and people of these players, you become really you obviously attached to them and attached to the journey, and you want the best for them. So we want to give them the best opportunities, and it probably comes back to the start of this bit of the conversation, where we talk about everybody's journey is different. Some people go out on loan, some people stay in. The type of loans that we get them are really important. There's a lot of work that we're doing in the loan space at the moment. Chris Brass has been our pathway stroke loans manager for a couple of years, and he left at the end of last season, and Owen Coyle Jr. has taken up that role. And the level of detail that we've started going into over the last couple of years in really kind of vetting the loan club, seeing what type of managers we want our young players to work with. Certain clubs that we would send players to, certain clubs we would send players to, certain clubs we wouldn't, and it's the right fit for the right fit, right player, sending them to the right club, to the right manager. Geographically, does it work? And there's a lot of how do the clubs play? What's the style? All them things are bits that we're really kind of delving into, and we don't want to leave anything to chance.
I want to pick Andy's brain a little bit more about his career and his coaching, but just before we do that, a quick word for the Trent Navigation. And I think I've got a Trent Navigation question for Reedy on the other side of this 30-second video.
And not just great beers, but immaculate inside. Cobs on the bar. What more do you want? I would say it was well priced as well. And then, obviously, as you know, the big shed outside and what they've done on match days is phenomenal. That's become, when I first started, as a kid, I never really heard of the Trent Nav as like a big place to go. And then the last few years, it's really grown in stature as a pre-match place to go. I love it. And I love the fact that it's on the way to the ground. And I just love everything they've done with it. It's great.
Thanks to Trent Nav. Thanks to Matt Ford for that.
Fordy's great. He got into that there, didn't he?
I've got another video of Fordy, another slightly different where he loves it. Yeah, he loves it, definitely. Am I right in saying you've been on stage at the Nav playing guitar?
Yeah, I have. Paul McGregor done Paul McGregor and his band. Brilliant. Guys, and I love Macri. He's a great guy, and he asked me if I'd get up and do a song with them while they done a gig. I think it might have been after the Aston Villa game. So I told him I would, and I remember the game, actually, to be fair, because we ended up winning late. So everybody went across, and everybody was happy. If we had lost the game, we maybe might have got tomatoes thrown at us or something like that. But because we won, people gave us a bit of a cheer, so it was a nice evening.
How long have you played guitar for then?
I've been playing since I was about 14 or 15. We had God rest his soul, Noel O'Reilly, who's assistant manager of my Ireland underage teams, and then when I got into the senior team, he was Brian Kerr's assistant. He used to bring the guitars on the away trips when we were younger, and we used to kind of have sing songs and stuff. And I kind of got into playing guitar in and around then. Got one for my 15th birthday or something like that. My ma bought me one, and I've been playing since. Mind you, when you have kind of two young kids like I do, you don't get to play as I don't get to play as much as when I was kind of a single footballer when I was like 19, 20, and I'd have all the afternoons free and I'd just go and play the guitar for hours. I definitely don't get that type of time anymore.
Sounds good. Last one on this. Would you like to have been a rock star over a footballer at any point, or was it just a bit of a hobby?
No, it's always just been a hobby. I do enjoy it, but for me, football's the one.
Let's talk about a few Forest memories then. I wanted to ask you about working under Steve Cooper, getting promotion. Did that close a chapter for you in a sense of getting over the line? Because you come so close under Paul Hart and the second spell as well. Was it vanquishing a few demons for you in that sense or not?
Well, I think from a personal point of view, probably my one regret, and I don't have very many regrets from my kind of playing career. I try not to have too many regrets in life if possible. I'd like to think that you make decisions in the moment in kind of good faith, and things happen. Sometimes things don't. But my one regret that I do have from my playing career was that I didn't get the opportunity to play in the Premier League with Forest. We didn't get an opportunity. Obviously, was fortunate enough to play for some big clubs in the Premier League, which was great. But I never got to kind of play in the Premier League at the City Ground, and that was that was a disappointment for me. So when the club got promoted and Steve asked me to step up with the first team, and I got the opportunity to coach in the Premier League with Forest, I think it was a kind of a close second. You know, there was some in that first season. There was some really, really tough moments throughout it, which we knew that there was going to be, but there was also some incredible moments as well. There was really some incredible times. It was great, you know, it really was great, and I think we done a lot of brilliant work. You know, I know people go on about, you know, the players that we've come in and kind of the way that the season panned out. A lot of brilliant work went into kind of gelling that squad, and you know, we know that the owner was very generous in bringing the players in, and then that brings its own challenges then as a coaching staff and how you kind of knit that group together. And you know, and Steve and the rest of the coaching staff and, you know, myself involved in that. I think there was a lot of brilliant work done to just make sure that the club stayed in the Premier League so we could then flourish.
Was it you who was responsible for the penalty shootout against Sheffield United and taking those positions to psychologically kind of win that battle? Because a few players have spoken about that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I mean, I didn't come up with the first team until we got promoted to the Premier League. So,
oh yeah, of course, yeah.
I worked, you know, pretty closely with Steve, and you know, and he was great because I was doing the under-21s as it was at the time then. So I didn't, so I wasn't with them that season. So, but there was a lot of really good work done in that leading up by all the staff. They took a lot of stuff from some of the bits kind of Gareth Southgate had done with the England setup, because there'd been obviously quite a close connection there, and it worked brilliantly. I mean, I remember that game, that playoff semi-final game against Sheffield United, and we talk about a little bit of vindication. One of the worst nights that I ever had in a Forest shirt was losing a playoff semi-final to Sheffield United at Bramall Lane. So to kind of, you know, to kind of beat them that night, I think was good. And in all honesty, I don't have any kind of dislike for Sheffield United at all. I spent 3 months on loan there, and I kind of really enjoyed it. But I also know that there's a lot of rivalry between the Forest and Sheffield United kind of fans. So to get over the line that night, and kind of I always felt that once we got past Sheffield United that we would get promoted, and I don't mean that in any disrespect to Huddersfield, but I just always felt that the Sheffield United one was going to be the tough game, and if we can kind of get past them over the two legs, then I felt we would get promoted.
I got my timelines terribly crossed. You very graciously bailed me out there. A lesser man would have called me out on getting all that wrong, so I'm grateful for that. I hated that Sheffield United team. I know you don't like them. That 2003 team under Warnock, I could not stand them at all. That was my worst moment as a Forest fan. Again, maybe it's a generational thing. Even worse than Yeovil in 2007. That was so painful. That team was so good. That team would have stayed in the Premier League if you'd gone up, I think, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think possibly we would have needed to add to the squad. I think probably the disappointing thing for us is that we loved playing together, that group. You know, we had a really, really close knit group, and we felt that if we had even after not getting promoted, missing out, if we'd have kept that team together, and you know, we'd added 2 or 3 players, and we signed Darren Huckabee, who came in and was brilliant for us. If we'd have kept Jim Brennan and Ricky Schumacher, kind of players like that, then I feel that we would have probably won the league the following season reasonably comfortably. But unfortunately, it just didn't kind of fit into the timelines of, you know, Nigel Doughty had been putting a lot of money into the club for a long time, and it just didn't stack up for him to be able to kind of do that, which is such a shame for us as a team, because it kind of started to peter out after that once we started to lose some of the players and replace them with, you know, with the greatest respect, players that probably weren't as good as the ones that left.
Yeah. David Prutton's become a good friend of mine. I'm quite pleased you didn't mention him as a big loss, because that would have been galling if you had.
No, we were pleased to get rid of Prutton. No,
I've got to send him that clip now after this.
No, I'm only joking. I love Prutz. I come across him on the media circuit from time to time, and he's done great for himself. He speaks very well, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he does. He's a lovely guy. Was Gareth Williams? I'm going off for tangents now. Was Gareth Williams a super underrated player who seems to have disappeared? I don't know. I think he's coaching kids now, but he was. I love Gareth Williams.
Yeah, I mean Gareth was an excellent footballer. Really, really technically gifted, good passer of the football, and was an important part of the team. Well, you look around and there was like a lot of talented players there, and look at players in that position. Ricky Shimmick was so important to that team as well, where at times he just sat in front of the back line and just gave the rest of us a bit of freedom to, really push on, and he kind of marshaled that number 6 position kind of really, really well. And then it gave Jim Brennan the license. I could kind of tuck inside when we played in the diamond formation. I could play a little bit narrower. Jim Brennan would go high. Matty Louison would go high on the far side. And it's funny because, you talk about like formations now, and you talk about fluidity of formations and tactical flexibility, and you see teams kind of changing formations within a game. And it's like it's something that's kind of just being invented, and I'm not saying that we invented it, but if you think about the fact that we had a back 4, we had then a diamond in midfield, and then we had 2 up front. Okay, now when Matty Louison went really high on that right side and Jim Brennan went really high on that left side, and then the 2 centre backs, whether it was Doss, Des, John Thompson, John Yelda, whoever it was, they split a little bit and Ricky Shimmick had dropped into it. All of a sudden, then you've got essentially a 3-5-2 formation. So, these kind of things were kind of going on. The tactical flexibility and the good players that we had who were clever enough to do it, the good coaching that we had, and within that gave us the opportunity to really, really hurt teams in different ways.
Oh yeah, I love that team. It was so good to watch the football. You were ahead of your time. I mean, giving Darren Ward the ball as often as you did, I was thinking just kick it long, please, but he never did, and it
no, he wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed. If he ever just booted the ball forward, then Harty would threaten to take him off.
Let me ask you a little bit about the second spell. I mean, you talk about not having regrets. Is it? You can't regret getting injured, but is it painful to you that you were coming off such a good season? Stuart Pearce had come in as manager, and then it all ended quite abruptly for you. With ultimately, as much as you tried to get back.
Yeah, it was really, excuse me, it was really disappointing. The way it all turned out, we were like forced a second in the league, but we were definitely right up there, and we had a really good side. Everybody was really comfortable. We had a really good mix of experience and youth in the team. We had some really, really good players. I think Stuart Pearce made some excellent signings in Mikel Antonio, Britt Sombalonga, Chris Bourke, people like that. Really, really good players. And I'm gonna have missed people out there as well. But we had a really, really good mix, and it was ticking along nicely. And we had senior pros and myself and Chris Cohen, Jack Hobbs, among others in there, who used to kind of marshal the dressing room pretty well. And we would, we did manage the dressing room really well, and supported the younger lads when they needed, give them a kick up the backside when we need it, and then had the good support then of Stuart Pearce. And as kind of luck would have it, in that game against Derby, which is my last ever game, Chris Cohen done his knee in that game. I think it was his second or his third ACL injury, which was horrible. As somebody who's like one of my really, really good mates, it was really tough to see. And then later on in the game, then I went to whip a ball, and I just felt my groin. I felt something in it, like a sharpish kind of pain that then completely subsided. And I thought, oh, it's okay, it's just a sharp pain, I'll just get on with it. And then the next time I went to get the ball, and I went to kind of kick it again, and I had zero power in my groin. It just completely, and I had been kind of nursing some kind of problems in and around that area for quite a bit. But I think when I came off, it became pretty apparent that this was going to take a bit of work. So I ended up having 3-4 surgeries on it. Tried to get back and really kind of push myself, but I wasn't able to kind of get myself back. But to take my thing out of it, the next game, then I think we played Bolton away, I think it was, and I'm pretty sure that it was Bolton away that Jack Hobbs done his back, and he was out for a bit. So you've got this, really kind of important players in the spine of the team, in Jack Hobbs, Chris Cohen, myself, all taken out of the team. But then also, kind of when you're injured, it's really, really difficult to kind of marshal the dressing room when you're injured. You're on different time kind of scales. You're in seeing the physios at different times. You're not quite in the changing room as much as you should be. And so to take all three of us within the space of 2 weeks out of the team and essentially kind of not away from the dressing room, but just, as I said, just becomes more difficult to kind of marshal it, and was a big blow for the team. And it was one that I suppose we probably struggled to overcome.
Let me just ask you before we wrap things up about going into next season for Forest. What would your message be to fans? Because we're going to be so excited. We'll probably have high expectations. Would you temper those around Europe and balancing the Premier League, or would you say let's all dream and let's see where it takes us?
I think there's probably a bit of both. I kind of think about probably people's kind of disappointment maybe at the end of the season, and and I kind of understand that, missing out on the Champions League and what have you, but also, like, I think there needs to be so much context put around there. How far the club has come, and really, when you look back, and they should look back on that season with immense pride and and kind of satisfaction. What an incredible season! Some of the moments that the first team gave us were unbelievable. So, park that disappointment and move on with real optimism, and then you move into this season, and we've seen some of the success there that the English clubs can have in the Europa League and in the Conference League. There's no reason why we can't cause teams problems. So I would say go and go and enjoy it. People towards the end of the seasons, send a message saying, "Oh, we need to get our passports renewed," and going back to Europe and all them things. Like, it's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. One of the times when I came over on trial, was for the Forest's home game against Lyon. I was actually over on trial that game and went and watched the game, and I know how kind of special it is because I've kind of felt it. So to have them moments again, Forest in Europe, I think it's a special thing, and it should be kind of cherished and enjoyed. And the Forest fans just bring, like they will, just bring the atmosphere, bring the banners, bring the loud voices, and just get behind the team, because I think what this team has shown is a great degree of resilience, a great degree of quality. They've showed that they're really committed to the football club, and they've given us some brilliant moments to cheer. So get behind the lads, and nobody knows where it's going to take us.
Excellent. Just before we wrap up, I've just got to drop a word in for our second sponsors, Vesta Blinds. If you're looking for new blinds or shutters across the East Midlands, do check them out at vestablinds.com. There's a very disappointing lack of blinds or shutters behind Andy Reid, I can see here, if you're watching on YouTube. So you'll have to get Mrs. Reid to address that with Vesta Blinds, I'm sure.
Get them to call me, yeah.
Yeah, I will. Right. I just wanted to do the last 2 or 3 minutes with some quick-fire questions. Ryan Yates and Harry Toffolo have done basically the same sort of questions. So if you'll indulge, I'm going to throw these at you, Andy. Who was the best player you played with at Forest, would you say?
At Forest?
Yeah.
Who was the best player I played with at Forest? I didn't get him, obviously, in his prime, and I think that was pretty obvious. But I think from being able to see what he could do, and what he would have been able to do in his prime, would have to be Des Walker. I mean, Des took a year off and then came back and just joined in with us on first day pre-season after taking a year off, and then he kind of got himself in the team, and how he marshalled, how he organised, how he read the game. Yeah, Des Walker.
This will be a tough one to answer. What about anywhere in your career, bearing in mind all the top players you played with?
Yes, it is a really tough one. Really tough one. I would probably have to say Roy Keane. even though I did catch him kind of towards the end of his career as well, understood the kind of presence that he had on the football pitch. But so I would have to say Roy, but probably closely followed one that I really enjoyed playing with was Michael Carrick at Tottenham. How he got the ball, looked the pass forward, broke lines, got you the ball in the right areas. He was also a top player.
Who's the biggest influence on your career, would you say?
I've been asked this. I've been asked this before, and I think it's kind of really tough to choose. I think my dad was obviously a massive influence on my career, and my dad played League of Ireland football. So he knew the game, and he was a really big a big influence on my career. Paul Hart, as we've spoken about, was a massive influence and somebody that really kind of influenced me. And then on an international perspective, Brian Kerr was obviously a big influence on my career and gave me my Ireland debut as well. I know I haven't given you one there, and I've given you three when you did ask for one, but it's really difficult for me to choose kind of one of them over the other, because they've all influenced me in really big ways throughout my career and throughout my life.
No, that's good. That's good. You might have answered this one already. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice. Yeah, well, I that was a good bit of advice that Gary Brazil gave me, I have to say, with the humility. I think the things that you try and pass on to some of the players, and we've just been talking. I've just been out the back garden with my lad, and we're doing a bit of finishing. We're doing a bit of technical work, and then we get down and we do some sprints as well. I think the hard work aspect that goes along with having the ability. I think I found out I had plenty of ability as a player, and as I kind of moved on throughout my career, I realized that ability won't take anywhere unless you kind of got that hard work and that drive and that desire. So it's massively important, because you can have loads of ability and not play at the kind of the top level if you don't have that drive and that hunger. And the opposite way, you can have limited enough ability, but if you've got that real drive and that real hunger and desire, it can take you right away.
Talking of that ability, this is obviously a very personal question in terms of what's the best goal you scored. But if you were to pick out one that sticks in your memory, what was the best goal you scored?
People always bring up the one that I scored at Upton Park. I can't remember what year it was. But I remember getting the ball kind of deep enough in my own half, and it kind of opened up for me a little bit, and I didn't. I think Marlon Howard might have run offside or something like that. So I decided not to play to him, and I kept running. And then I took a shot from pretty far distance out, and it went in the top corner. So I think that one was probably the best goal that I scored. Another one that means a lot to me as well, on my competitive debut for Ireland, we played against Cyprus and Lansdowne Road, and I scored a good goal in that game as well. I think we won 2 or 3-0, and that's a goal that was a good goal, and it means a lot to me as well.
Last couple. This can expand into coaching as well. What's your best Forest memory?
Best Forest memory. I think it has to be probably making me debut. Made me debut against Sheffield United. Actually, funnily enough, your mate Prutz got an assist. He slipped me through. I went 1-on-1 with the keeper. I think that's the only assist Prutz ever got, I think. He slipped me through, went 1-on-1 with the keeper and slotted it in. And, so making me debut and scoring on my debut, I think was a really special moment.
He probably slipped when he was making the pass, literally. So don't worry. Last question. Loads of people have asked this question, including Yatesy and Harry Toffolo. It says about you as a person as a little bit, I think. Andy Reid, what's your favourite pizza?
Well, our kids love Pizza Express. I know I don't want to mention. I don't want to be doing any promotions or anything like that. But our kids love Pizza Express. So when I go Pizza Express, I get margarita with chicken, and I put some chili flakes on it as well.
Nice. So that's a good answer. I'll take that, definitely. Right. We shall leave it there. It was a lovely chat with Andy. I really enjoyed that. If you enjoyed it, do us a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. If you remember, you'll get early access to this, or sign up for Patreon. The same goes there, or give us a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Andy, thank you. We took 45 minutes of your time, which I'm very grateful there. But I hope you enjoyed it, even though I got the timeline wrong and probably offended Nick Marshall as well.
No, it's fine, mate. No, it's fine. No, I appreciate it. No, I always enjoy chatting about football. And it's conversations like this make you think about some of the good times that you've had as well. So it's been a pleasure. Thanks for reminding me of some of them. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for giving us the good times. That feels a good note to end on. We all appreciate that. You've given us great memories. So thanks to Andy Reid. Thanks to you for your company. I'm not sure when we'll be back, probably tomorrow. But if we don't see you then, we shall see you soon.